You're not looking at me as just the hula dancing guy from last night. Tyrone, as we call him. So yeah, really excited about this panel. Really talking deeper dive into hyper localizing content that you can use in your landing pages or your syndication of your business data. So I had a great talk with these guys before this about this panel. I think it's going to provide a lot of relevant content for you. So just kick it off, do a little quick introduction to you guys and what you do and things like that.
Sure. So my name is Douglas Cohen. I'm the manager of digital marketing and SEO at EDT Security. I've been working with Rio for a little over a year as one of the components to a local strategy that incorporates local SEO, IYP media, reputation management, and content curation across our local offices. And prior to ABT, I was Director of Marketing and Product Development at the Spanish Yellow Pages, part of the Mexican company Telmex, and the name of the company was Sección Amarilla, which means yellow section.
My name is Rich Mastriani. I'm the Director of SEO with Wyndham Hotel Group. We oversee 13, 14 brands that changes every now and then. Over 7,500 global locations. I also oversee global SEO, technical SEO, as well as local SEO.
I am Steve Wiedemann from Wiedemann Consulting Group. We are a strategist group that help franchises and multi-location businesses with strategy, oversight, and execution.
Great. So hopefully this clicker's working. Maybe. All right. So let's talk about a few things, not just from localized content, but also ways that brands like or some things that maybe Steve has seen and AT and Wyndham Hotels around enriching that kind of user experience with local community events and things like that. So really just want to kick it off and Douglas has a really good story about this and how localized or how local search actually became what it is today. So a little feedback on that.
Sure, we have a couple slides on this. And so before we had terms like the pigeon update, local SEO, different algorithms, when the internet really started to gain mass usage within society, people were actually using the web with local intent, right? I think three verticals where that's prevalent was in classifieds, online dating, and job boards, which were three of the first industries to really take hold online. So you see on the screen, some brands or some online brands that are still prevalent today, some that are more of years past, but those all existed before Google really was starting to dominate our consumption of local media and local listings. And even though they weren't really hyper-localized media, the local aspect of their content was just the search results that they provided. But they're a testament to that. The web is a medium people use to find whatever it is they're looking for, but within their region.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of examples here, just a few ways that local has been brought into the overall experience. So in Char's presentation, trying to address the actual consumer's needs, what they're looking for. So these are just some examples that you can see is when you're looking at Fort Lauderdale, maybe putting an actual image of Fort Lauderdale behind it. So it immerses the person into that specific location, what they're looking to do. I know I see this on my Chase mobile app, where based on my location, they'll change the background for the login screen, which is cool. So it gives that sense of personalization to it, as well as for when you're searching for things like maybe even on Wyndham Hotels, you guys have local events. Maybe talk about how you guys use that to drive that user experience.
Yeah, sure thing. So in terms of ranking for local or just appearing in local searches, you want your business or your locale to be as relevant to your area as possible. So you want to identify areas where there's content. So in the hotel space, the hotel is this secondary, right? So nobody goes out and says, "Oh, I want to stay at this hotel, and I'm just going to go stay in San Francisco or San Diego because this hotel's there." Somebody says, "I'm going to a conference," or "I want to go to San Diego because San Diego is a great place," and then they choose the hotel second. So Wyndham, we try to provide as much relevant content to the locale itself. Most likely, we do that through we try to get unique content, we try to get reviews, and we try to get also the search engines as people are searching for those events as well. So it's even your on-page strategy is extremely important to be relevant, but your off-page strategy needs to be as relevant to your locale as well. So the value of a local citation from a local directory is going to have more value for your local business over a national or national directories as well. And then also regionally as well. So getting, we speak to 5,000 franchisees in the U.S. or worldwide, and they're constantly asking us what we can do. We're telling them generate more reviews that have local content in them. That obviously you can't really control that too much. But we also want them to go out and participate and network with local businesses and try to get their hotel listed on their website, even like the local Little League team. Just usually go up to town, name the URL, there's just a ton of relevant local content on there, and try to get a link for traveling sports teams to do for the biggest tank hotel. So it's good for user experience as well as SEO.
Yeah, I can chime in here too. So Douglas, you mentioned something a minute ago, Pigeon. Is everybody familiar with Google Pigeon? Raise your hands if you heard of it, know what it is. So Pigeon was this update they made that took in more organic ranking factors over local. One of the things that's sort of behind the scenes in all of this personalized, regional relevant content is the fact that when somebody visits your webpage, they're less likely to go back to Google and choose a different result. That user search behavior is such an important part of ranking. So just by offering something personalized, without taking away from the user experience of what they're actually there to do, gets them to go to from your page to some other page, as opposed to going back to Google. So even if they don't convert, at least they're not going back to Google. So thinking about how we're regionalizing and personalizing search, just always kind of think about that user behavior factor.
Yes, I would say to Steven's point, all this year, we work with location-driven businesses, and we have pages that are a lot of information on it, right? You have your nav, your name, address, phone number, your business hours, maybe what services you provide at that location, and that's all, textual content for indexing for search engine optimization. But when you bring someone actually over to your local page, you don't want to just overwhelm them with all this information about the location. You need to speak to them. You need to give them a user experience that they can relate to immediately upon that first impression of your page. So hyperlocal imagery is a great way to differentiate that particular location of your business from other locations, as well as to have your business stand out from other competitors who might not be as savvy in their local strategy. Such as, when we go back to the page with car rentals, if you start properly tagging the imagery on your page as well, it could also help with your ranking. So these two pages are actually the top two ranking pages for car rental in Los Angeles. And we see they have their business elements. Enterprise has their search for a car widget there, but they also have peppered their page with a couple of local images of the city. And on the enterprise page, they actually have a couple of snippets of content about the city. And so, it's not distracting too much from the conversion and from the services that they're providing, but it's giving just enough local imagery to capture that user's attention, matching what their query was, which was for Los Angeles, and then move them deeper into the funnel.
Hey, to dive deeper into local elements, I think something that's we're not talking about enough is schema markup on your website. Marking up your business as a locale in the business, using schema descriptions to write about the images, for example, because Google's not going to well, they may be trying to. They may not fully understand what the images are about just from the image itself. So the best way to do that is through your alt tag. You can even use your alt description to provide some content behind that, so that Google's crawling that and understand using local keywords specific to your images, your business. Also, I like the reservation for a phone number, so we can mark up our phone number, so that when somebody Googles like the days in Altoona, Pennsylvania, there will be a markup that will show up directly in the post that will have a reservation over there. That's a key business tool for us that we're rolling out right now. The phone is a huge, and I'm going to be jumping ahead here, but the phone is a huge component of the hotel business. More and more traffic, actually, we're getting more and more call volume, as people are shifting from desktop to mobile. I think that's just the natural progression for the web.
Yeah, and I think on, schema, of course, alt tags, title tags. What about, have you guys seen any statistics or improvement by using Open Graph data for Facebook?
So I don't know, correlation and causation, right? So open graph data is great because you have the opportunity to push custom imagery for Twitter, for Facebook, and if you're using Twitter cards. So thinking about how you're using that metadata, does Google crawl and use it? We've seen it show up in search results before, but whether they actually use it as a ranking signal, obviously there's not much data about it, but where there is data is if you can push a really compelling image that's made for the community and the audience that you're pushing to, Facebook or Twitter, you could get a lot of click-through, you could get a lot of share, and if it's viral enough, you might even build some buzz around it. But I don't think there's any data that I know of.
Okay. And then kind of jumping into the next thing is, we've talked about a lot of hyperlocal things that we can put on the page, and really, you guys see this a lot more than I do, is how they're driving conversions. So maybe, if Steve, you want to talk about that a little bit, and then pass it down.
Sure. And on the screenshot you see here, you can't scale sometimes when you've got 20,000 locations and I tell your developer, hey, I'm going to need 6,000 different city images. We have weekends available. So what you do is you start with the basics. You just get with every location, say, please go take an HD image of the building so that we can add that particular image to our database. You try to include some of the local cities if you can, and that Google map that you see on the screen here is definitely an important component. If you look at, I think David Mim does this study every year where he talks about the top local ranking factors. You always see a Google map as a big part of that. It's not, in my opinion, it's not just because it's a Google map that Google's suddenly going to rank you higher. It's because people see their city and they see the streets and they see the pins and they associate with it better and they can get to where they want faster. So just starting with those basics, the local nearby cities in case they happen to be bordering from where they're actually searching from, and the location that's better for them is actually in a different city that happens to be closer. And then the imagery of the location itself. Just start with those 3 locations. Conversion tends to be a little bit higher. The user resonates with the page better, and it doesn't look like some generic page out there. More screenshots.
Yes. So in terms of driving conversion, I have 2 components. One, we're currently updating our images as well for 50 domestic hotels, and we're rolling out a tablet experience. So we decided to pay for the images because they're that important to us. So Dan McQueen here, our director of content. So she rolled out this platform where we brought on a vendor. We're rolling out over the next 2 years. We're updating all of our images, and the important reason why we decided to pay for it ourselves is we tested our current images, which are low-res images, and all we tested was making that specific image bigger on the hotel overview pages, and we saw a 12% lift in conversion on those pages just by increasing the size of that image. So that was a clear indicator. Our CMO got on board right away, and that was a big part of our written conference that rolled out was image optimization. The second component is the amount of calls that are being generated directly from Google. So Google's bypassing the web experience altogether. You don't even have to go to a hotel page to book a hotel anymore. It's pretty much done directly in SERP. And then click the call button for the hotel industry. We ran a pilot over the past 6 months, and we noticed that we do generate a ton of phone calls from Google Mobile, but when we looked into the data within the Google local profile, which we can extrapolate, just look at it and write down manually, 90% of the phone calls that were being generated to our call central line were being directed from the mobile device that clicked the call button. So no one's finding them on the website or anything, they're just calling directly from the call button, which was, we were shocked by that number. So we plan on optimizing the home conversion as well.
Here's a neat screenshot. So how many people here have tested the virtual tour, 360 virtual tour? How many people have them on their locations? Did you have to show of hands of anyone who noticed a difference in rank when you added those? No, not many. So in this particular case, there's, and I don't know if you can see the chart there at the bottom. But in this particular case, we rolled out a test of 200 locations of a total of 23, where we put the 360 virtual tour on there. And sure enough, over the course of several weeks, and we could see a difference. Over the course of 5 months, the location that had the 360 virtual tour actually displaced the listing that didn't have it. So you can kind of see the little green and red arrow there. But it was an interesting test, and we took a specific group of locations and then ran it against a control group to see if we could see a difference. So I would encourage you, when it comes to conversion, is to take a bundle of your locations and run some tests on enhanced personalized media, such as a video or a 360 tour if you can afford it.
Right, and for ADT, what we offer the market is a very sort of a personal vibe. It's something for someone's home and it brings them peace of mind. So we actually incorporated video into our local pages as well. We have different testimonial videos of ADT customers who actually benefited from the service, and we matched to our locations a testimonial video that was within the county or the state of that actual location. And to Richard's point that mobile is increasing in importance, we also enable video to be played on our pages from a mobile device. So we looked at a few different ways to do that. The first obvious option was to use the YouTube player. The challenge we found with that is when someone loaded the video from our local page, it would take them off the page, take them over to YouTube, and then we essentially lost that user. They couldn't easily come back to the page to convert. So we found some other technology where we can actually embed the video within our local page, and when they watch the video, it opens the player, and when the video is finished, they come right back to our local page, and the phone number is right there for them to call into our sales center.
Great. Yeah, and I think, just on that, it kind of goes into that same, when we talk about the beacons and overloading the user, it's like, with this, it's not put 6 videos on your page and 100 photos or anything like that. It's making it relevant and easy to use without overloading them. And I think, all you guys do that, really well, where you could get into other ones where it's highly expensive. So, kind of this is another conversion tactic or what you can do, that Stevie provided around, offers and things like that.
Sure. Tiffany from Kenshu mentioned earlier on the paid search side that coupons and offers are something that tend to do really well. On the hyperlocal side, if you do the same thing, so there was a little bit of a discussion at the table earlier around discounting your service. Why do we want to keep discounting our service? And unfortunately, at least in the auto repair industry, people search using the word coupons, and it's a top driver of traffic. So being able to learn from some of that paid search data and take in some of the actual queries that people are using and applying that to some of the sub-content on those local pages. So maybe it's not just location, maybe it's location / coupons or offers or promotions, and maybe you've even got some more sub-content on reviews. You do offer a more personalized experience. People are less likely to go back to Yelp or another directory to get that content. And you've got a landing page now that corresponds to those coupons and offers, so that you can really take advantage of getting the user directly to the page that gets them the offer and gets them into that appointment or into that sales process. So coupons and offers, again, it's a great way, depending on your industry, to provide copy for that query.
We don't have coupons at ADT, but we do have always a different offer or promotion in the market, and and we use those very prominently in our local marketing as well. The one challenge we had is that all of our offers are national. We don't have local coupons, or such as you see on the screen, a specific offer for Anaheim. We don't have city or state specific offers. ADT, most of our marketing is nationally focused. But what we do within the local experience is we hyper-localize the content, messaging, to frame it as something that's available for users within that specific city, so that it matches the other imagery and the SEO elements of the app, that everything is coming together for this immersive local experience. And hyper-localization of content is a great way to bridge national messaging with local consumers.
Yeah, that's a great try. I think you have both. You have some national, then you have some local offers. Yeah.
Great. So, really it's all talking about conversions. These are just some, great long-term SEO strategies to really put in, thank you guys for, that side of it. And I think it really goes back to that, that trust and, gaining the, by hyper-localizing the content just by putting in where it's nearby. I know, for Wyndham, they'll put, this resort is near, the zoo, or it's by SeaWorld, and if like, somebody's searching for, I want a hotel near SeaWorld versus just San Diego instead. So, I see that as, it's a huge way of, not creating duplicate content, and creating hyper, relevant content, and then, promoting it through promotions or coupons or even, localized messaging. It definitely keeps those users there.
Sure, and we come down to it, at the end of the day, everybody is trying to get top placement and local results, right? I mean, you can talk about referral traffic and social local, and you can talk about that 5% of traffic or whatever that you're getting from Yelp. But at the end of the day, we know that most of our traffic comes from Google, and we obsess over it. And what I think is important to remember is that Google works in patterns. So when you're working on your hyperlocal content or your business directory strategy and syndication, you're going to be earlier talking about how are you doing for regional directories. If you think about patterns, and every month you challenge your team to improve on what you're doing with regards to improving your content and testing titles and descriptions and structured markup, and every month you're doing something to improve, Google's going to recognize that. Over time, they're going to see this pattern of the content improving and the visibility improving and the online reputation and reviews improving. And if you're managing those three things every month, Google is going to recognize that. The one thing you really don't have to manage every month is that data aggregation aside from change management. Once you finish that and it's there and it's accurate and it's golden, just focus on those three things. How am I improving what I'm delivering to the user? How am I improving my visibility within local and industry and general directories? And how am I improving my reputation? If you're thinking about those three things every month, you're just going to continue to grow.
Great. And then, really kind of talking about that, Vision and Penguin and who knows what's coming next, the apocalypse or whatever you want to call it, with the mobile ranking factors, really want to talk about, see how, maybe that's affected, your guys' side of the business. I know with the carousel moving to the map pack, maybe Rich, you want to talk about that?
The hotel issue is currently affected, the map pack specifically November 14th, 2014. So
He remembers that day well.
my visibility just jumped down, actually just declined sharply from November 14th on, but luckily we were rolling out Rio at the same time, and we pushed out to a ton of data, all our data aggregators at that point as well. But what we saw was the local 3-pack actually helped us with SEO, because where we were ranking in the top 3, we got that much more click-through, we got that much more visibility in those areas. So we got to do some work to get more visibility, but wherever we were getting that visibility, there was much higher click-through. I think I probably have some data with that as well. So prior to November 14th, 36% of our traffic was local. After that, and after we rolled out Rio, 47% of our traffic was visits were coming from local SEO. So there was a dramatic change. It didn't happen immediately after that. It took around 6 to 8 weeks for that to happen. So that change actually helped us a lot. Helped us in terms of focus.
I can tell you in general with some of the franchises that we work with that our minds changed a little bit about local search. We used to get really hung up on those 4 pillars we were talking about a minute ago. And now with organic being more of a signal, we got to spend a little bit more time working on our city level pages so that we would show up in an organic result above the 3-pack. And then focus a little bit more of our energy on the actual property landing page or the PLP page for our maps result. And understanding that segmentation really helps, especially with analytics, as you're thinking about how you're tracking, like use a PID or something as an attribute in your Google My Business. You can actually see the difference in what's showing up in the map packs versus what's showing up in organic. So with Pigeon in mind, now we can really focus in on trying to provide a great experience at the city level so that we can enhance where our placement is and have more saturation in organic results. So an ideal scenario when you're done is, you've got the organic for a city-related query, call it shoe store in Anaheim or whatever. You've got your city page at the top, and the map pack, your hopefully letter A or B, A and B if you've got 2 locations. And then your third will be your Yelp and then Yellow Pages. So you've got some full saturation if you really take the time to nurture, again, the city level page, the property landing page, what you're doing with your Yelp and Yellow Pages profiles. You could get some really good saturation, but just again, Pigeon, thinking about that segmentation, and dedicating resources to each.
Great.
Sure, I can go back to that.
You want to talk more?
So we rolled out a new SEO strategy, or a local SEO strategy in middle of the year last year. I think August we started rolling out. So we were working with Next in 2014, and we had switched, and we had met with Rio. We met with a bunch of other agencies as well. We decided to go with Rio. We pushed out to our 4 major aggregators. We started pushing out to all the GPS systems and pushing out and getting all of our unit consistency. And you can see the top chart we have what our local traffic looks like after the 3-pack rolled out. We were seeing, on a weekly average, we're seeing 40 to 50% increases in traffic to local SEO. And then non-local organic post 3-pack and post Rio, we pretty much stayed even with non-local traffic as well. So obviously citations are important, relevant content to your local business pages as well, and also local link building is all 3 important factors for local SEO.
Yeah, I think also monitoring your local results is becoming increasing in importance, not just because of the prominence on the SERP, but also because how easy it is for third parties or even people within your organization to post user-generated content into Google My Places. So on organic results, the ADT.com domain, it has good equity, and it's hard for other companies, marketing partners, or reseller networks to essentially build out their own sites, build out content, and outrank us on organic. So in organic results for local search, we've seen a positive result. In local, when we first rolled it out, we saw a spike and then we saw it flatten out. That's because there's success, or the news of the success trickled out to a lot of other marketing partners. And in the home security space, the local 3-pack, it actually hasn't become a 3-pack yet. It's still the 7, 8, 9, 10 results within the local. It's not like hotel, right? And so it's a very competitive space because we don't just have 3 that we can compete alongside with. We end up having about 10 different other security providers, whether they be competitors or other sellers of ADT. And that little section of the SERP that's very visible and very powerful for driving inbound phone calls has actually become a very competitive rotation for us, and we monitor it very closely.
I definitely think, reporting, making sure that you're tracking everything to see what works is obviously by far the most important, or else why would you be doing it in the first place? To kind of segue into, we've talked about our, your own local landing page content, how to enrich the user experience, but there's still those Yelps and Yahoo listings and all those things out there that, still show up in the search results, but you might have the name, address, phone number correct, but really how you can kind of build that into your strategy. Maybe Steve, you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. So Yelp in particular is, I don't know if you've done a little creative search strategy blog, but we actually interviewed or surveyed 1,000 Yelp users just to kind of understand a little bit more about the user base and why they use it and why it's important. We looked at our data across 3 different franchises to really understand what Yelp's value was and how it played into local search rank. So just, again, as a data source or as a citation source, it's still obviously on the top of the list because they have so much authority. But thinking about, I don't want to use the term barnacle SEO, but in thinking about how we're leveraging those additional profiles for additional saturation in search results, as well as to make sure that we have visibility within the search on those. I don't know if you've seen it lately, but if you're franchised and you have the same name across every single location in Facebook, it's very frustrating if you've got 2 stores on the same street or in the same city because it looked like the exact same company name. Well, recently Facebook was polite enough to roll out on their mobile the address right underneath the business name. So now we don't get those calls anymore saying I need to change my business name to include what side of the street I'm on. which can be frustrating because again, you're trying to get that, NAP. So, thinking about Yelp and Facebook and other social local destinations that we can get prominence on and traffic and, long-term increase our rank. Well, there's the big two right here, Yelp and Facebook, I think.
Yeah, and I think too, obviously everybody knows about Yelp, and you can go in and you can, pay for it and manage it. I think, maybe, I don't know, if does anybody in this room know about Facebook's parent-child page option? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's pretty cool. It kind of quietly rolled out in I think 2011 to select a few of retailers or big national brands. But basically, what you can do is you can create a finder on your corporate Facebook page and control all the subsidiary or individual locations under the corporate account. So I'll send out a kind of put a post on how to do that after this, but it's basically you just have them turn on the locations tab, and if you're using a platform like Rio, we could easily generate a feed and supply that. A good example of that was to look at Source Authority's Facebook page. So you can actually drill down, find locations, find specific Facebook pages around the location, and then from an analytics perspective, if they're all under that corporate account, it allows you to do all the analytics and the insights and engagement across the whole network on Facebook. And that's kind of where that open graph kind of plays in as well, because you can localize the open graph to a specific page or corporate ID with the messaging and imagery that we talked about.
Save you a ton of time.
Saves you a ton of time. So that kind of goes into about where the franchisees, they have pro Facebook pages. Maybe I don't know if ADT ever had this issue where maybe it's different suppliers is building the page around ADT services or anything like that. But really, having that relationship and just talking to your Facebook graph basically can help drive all that.
We haven't had that issue on Facebook per se, but we have had it on Yelp, for example, and some of the other directories where the home security protocol is quite prominent. And I think when it comes to subdirectories and focusing your local presence in areas outside of the major search engines, it comes down a lot to what vertical you're in, which medias serve those verticals, such as, for example, like TripAdvisor, very relevant to hotels, right? Not so relevant to ADT. Open Table, I think if you're a restaurant chain, you have to be on there. Again, not so relevant to the home services sector. However, home services, ISPs, cable TV, home security, there are certain directories where there is big traction, where there are consumers searching for services for the home line. YP is actually a very big one for us. Yelp is one we got into this year, and we have seen value out of Yelp. One part of that is because, as Tyler mentioned, there was other parts of our sales network that were already active there and creating sort of siloed profiles for ADT in different cities. We've now been able to go in and really kind of streamline and cast a net over our entire Yelp presence. As well as we found that there is actually good traction for home services on Yelp. And we're now capturing demand through a focused program on that property.
Well, I think that provided a lot of value. I mean, I learned a lot from it just from talking to you guys before this panel. Really want to go through and see if there's any questions.
Questions. I had a question.
What about neighborhood information? Anybody, any reports back on neighborhood information? Using it, injecting it, seeing rankings or?
So we're told we have 5,000 locations, so we're trying to gather all the information about which hotels actually are in specific neighborhoods. I think that's easy to do within larger cities, so we're kind of in the process of pulling that in, seeing what the search opportunity is for us there, and possibly extending it out. I know that we do have some specific neighborhood pages in New York City, Los Angeles, but nothing specific to the people outside of larger cities.
If you're talking about hyper-localizing by including neighborhood information on city level and property level, I'm sure after the event we can probably all put our heads together and come up with some fun examples of it. If we're talking about neighborhoods in terms of regional type pages that sort of overlap with city pages, where someone is typing in tri-state area and your service versus, a city versus and your service. There's definitely some good examples I can give you as well after the event, but that's something that should be considered. You look at your top DMAs and you create some custom content for those DMAs. I think you're going to see a lot of value out of it. It would take the same city level type template in what you're doing, but you want to really think about what the people in the region are interested in and try to provide something that's useful for them.
Thanks. We have a question here.
Hi, it's Mike Pica from New Star Local East, and this question I think is for Rich. So Rich, you had said that you were using Yext prior to Rio last year. Can you just talk quickly about what that service didn't give you, and then after switching to Rio, what that provided for you?
That was not very.
Is that a plant?
And what then?
Someone plant that?
Sure. So I started in April. I've been working with them for a year. So as soon as I got there, I did a vendor evaluation and I looked into what our local traffic was looking like and what our programs look like there. And I think once I did more and more research on local SEO and what needed to be done and areas that we were missing out on, I think that we weren't getting that in our current package with Yext, and what we're getting with Yext, we weren't ready to be there. It didn't make sense for us to be reaching out that far. We needed to get the basics correct first. So when I spoke with Bill and I had a relationship with Sarah as well, I called Sarah up right away. They kind of took me through everything and says, look, this is what's going to count, this is what's going to matter first. So we decided that we were going to roll that out as well. So we rolled that out. 77,000 locations. Took some time to get that data together, get that cleaned up, but the team helped us clean it up. They uploaded it up to Rio, got it launched out, and within 4 or 5 weeks, we saw a quick uplift at the end of the year. And it's continued throughout the year with traffic. Conversions dropped a little bit, but that's just bringing in some additional traffic that we didn't have prior to that as well. Overall, I think we do evaluate Yext in terms of some of what they offer, but it seems like I think they have a great network out there as well, and everything's bottled up into their own, you're buying Yext, you have to use Yext, and Rio offers a little bit more flexibility and scalability in terms of what we do, in terms of capabilities, so we can turn things on and turn things off when we want to, where from a Yext perspective, we're just kind of buying a package that's delivered directly to us.
And Yext does sort of lack some of the relationships with the aggregators, where Rio, I think, has a competitive advantage. I don't know any platform other than Rio that's mixed all 4 as part of their service.
Yeah, I don't really see Yext and Rio as being like, I see more like apples to oranges, because Yext is kind of a bolt-on to a complete, like a local strategy where, as was discussed in the panel with Ashley and Bill before, consistent data is essential. That's something that we're constantly trying to stay on top of with ADT. So we try to push our data through as many sources that will let us. So we push through localese, the other aggregators, and Yext is another one that, it doesn't help us rank, it doesn't act as a huge acquisition channel for us, but it's another source where we can push consistent data and try to create a smooth web presence for our local locations across the entire space.
We have time for 1 or 2 more questions if we have them. Oh, here we go. Our city's loaded with questions. Call out your boss on this one.
I didn't do that last time.
So, 2 questions. First one is, have you ever seen any businesses, like maybe like a bar, this would be an idea for, where they're actually feeding in like a live stream of their business, and so you can actually kind of peer in to see what's going on at that moment, and with that, how would that affect search results in hyperlocal?
Can you give me an example?
I mean, it's, I was searching for a bar in San Diego, and I wanted to see what's going on inside, so I click on the link, and it takes me to, live stream.
I haven't seen that. I have seen where we'll use APIs with review sites so that you can see real time what people are saying. I've also seen APIs in with social, so you can see what's being tagged and talked about on social on the individual property landing page. But I've never actually seen a live stream. That sounds pretty cool.
There's a company, here. That website gets a ton of engagement, not in-site, just social media engagement. The authority of the site's like 85, 88. It ranks for every local term where that hotel is as well. So I think that's an example of live streaming. Yeah, but if I was a bar owner, I would have a big camera inside my bar.
So I've seen live stream used in local marketing, but more on like the event side, when there's an event happening in a certain city, they'll use a live stream to promote that event as it's going on. I haven't seen it in terms of like retail or local marketing, how we're talking about listings today. ADT security product has a live stream from video cameras as part of it, but that would never, that's our customer.
Yeah,
That's never gonna happen.
Yeah, especially we all like to see that, I guess. And then the one other question is, if I'm just one business, like just one single business, and a small mom and pop, I'm kind of below Yext a little bit, and I'm below going to factual or factual, yeah. How would I get on all those aggregators, and what's the best way to do it? Is it just Google My Business, or would there be?
I wouldn't even worry about it. If you're the little guy, if you're the mom and pop, you've got a competitive advantage over the franchises that don't have the time or the opportunity to really get into regional directories, which drive a lot of local referral traffic. So if you spent your time really getting involved with the community and getting involved with other local businesses, not necessarily in your niche, but in your vertical, I think you've got something that the franchises would never be able to do. I think I wouldn't worry as much about some of the more expensive inclusions, and I'd focus more on just trying to make sure that the local people know that you are the local person, and provide offers that that resonate with them. Hey, we're a mom and pop, we're family owned, we're from the area. You've got something the franchise doesn't have.
Yeah, take the 15 hours and just claim your listings across everywhere you can find it. That's free for a good start. Great, guys. One thing I did that I don't think was brought up, but that I had heard about as well is storefront images taken outside your store with GPS cameras. So there are meta tags within your images that identify your location. And by having a storefront image or an image in the store or near the store adds another bit of schema to the SEO of your page by having that image, having the GPS meta tags within that image associated with the same address. So it's just another tip. That was it. We've got 20-minute break and we're on the downhill slopes, guys, and it's a good time. So we've got 20-minute breaks. There's drinks and nuts and refreshments outside. We will be back in here at 3 o'clock for the last couple sessions, and then it's party time.